in the car, gonna go far. Riding in my
A.
oh, uh,
Yeah.
rapping freestyle
A.
on the
What?
podcast
A.
with my
Who?
girlfriend.
A.
Talking about relationships. What? Talking about relationships. Okay.
Hi, my loves. This is Isabella Sanfilippo coming at you from WCHS, and you're listening to the I Love You podcast. So today in the studio, we have Max O'Reilly.
Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello. My name is Max O'Reilly. I am a junior at CHS, and I'm so excited to be on the I Love You podcast today
Why are you here today?
because we are talking about relationships, and I'm here with my girlfriend Izzy, and we're going to talk about relationships today.
Yes, we are. Specifically, romantic relationships. So, this is the first episode of I Love You Diving Deeper, besides just explaining what it is. So, you guys are in for a treat today. This is going to be a really good episode, fingers crossed. The first question I have is basically, what is love?
Ooh.
And what is true love? Is there a differential between the two?
So I always used love and true love interchangeably. I don't know. I feel like if you love someone, then it is true love, because I think that love is whatever you define it as. I think there's some times where maybe it might not be true love, but then I don't really think that you're in love at all. And I think love is just, it's honestly, it's tough to explain. I actually talked to my mom a bit about this when we were first, like when I first said it to you, and I was like, I don't know if I should, and I was getting a lot in my head about it. And she told me that when you really love someone, you won't have to think about it. You'll just know. And that really spoke to me, and that was really powerful, and that just kind of made it click. Like, it's not something that you can really analyze and overthink, which I think is a lot of where I was having an issue with it. It's just kind of a fact that you know. And I think that once you figure that out, it makes it a lot simpler.
I think so too. I think that also, I mean, I just said we're talking about romantic relationships, but there's like love with your family too. Like, I love my brothers, but I don't always like my brothers. So I don't know if it's true love necessarily, but I still do love my brothers.
Yeah.
I think that might also be a differential.
True love is more romantic.
I think so.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because you can love everyone.
Right. Exactly.
But
true love is really something.
It's like when you're in love.
Extra
I feel
special.
Like.
Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of going along with that question, what do you think? Do you think there's an age? Like, when can someone truly be in love?
I think that a lot of it has to do with maturity. So is there an age exactly? I think that people mature at different ages. And I think that there's a lot of reasons why people can say I love you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they feel it. So I think that maybe when you're, if you're like 5 years old and you're like, oh, I love you, like that's not like, that's not a real connection. You're just like saying it because you're 5 and it's like, you're nice. But I don't know if there's an exact age. I would say, I think it's just like really the same thing that my mom said. Like, if you really feel it and you really know, like in yourself and you're confident in that, that's for you to kind of decide. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I feel like we're so similar now that you just stole exactly what I was going to say.
What?
But I think there's like the middle school relationships that last 5 days, and it's like, I love you, and it's like just expected, because I feel like a lot of people think that when you're in a relationship, it's just expected to say I love you, but it's not true. Yeah. You shouldn't say it unless you really feel it. So I think I agree. Like, once you really feel it, that's when you know, and there's not really an age on that, because again, it does have a lot to do with maturity. Yeah. And there's also, I feel like, a difference between like a crush, like infatuation with someone, and actual love.
Absolutely. And I think that's another part of the maturity, is differentiating between the two.
Because you can be like absolutely obsessed with someone. Like, you can have a Harry Styles poster in your room that you bow down to every single night, but you might be in love with Harry Styles, but it's not true love. It's not really, well, I'm sure he loves all his fans, but it's not specifically reciprocated towards you. I think it's more of like an obsession or an infatuation. So I do think that there's that differential too that might
Right.
come from younger people.
It's like a lot of it is like, I think love is very personal, and like Harry Styles might not like personally love you, like you're not really getting the same thing from him that you're giving. So that can be tough too. Like I understand why that might not be true love, and that's like kind of a one-sided relationship with Harry Styles. So I feel like that's
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
I don't know what you're talking about because he does love me
Oh,
personally.
okay. Well, I'm
but-
sorry. I don't know.
So kind of drifting into the realm of, okay, if you do love someone in a relationship, how do you keep that? How do you keep the relationship going and that love alive? So what is, sorry, I guess that was a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
But
you-
what do you think is the most important thing when it comes to romantic relationships?
I mean, we've talked about this a
Yeah.
little bit. I always think it's communication. I think that if kind of everything almost runs through that, because if you're with someone else, you have to be on the same page, and you have to be kind of having the same conversations. And especially when you're having conversations that can be a little difficult, you have to both understand kind of what's going on. So I feel like if you're on different wavelengths, if you're not fully synced up together, that makes maintaining a relationship really, really challenging. So I think that's absolute communication, and just that way, everyone kind of knows what's going on.
You have to be cycle sisters.
What?
You
What
have
is
to
that?
be you said synced up.
Oh, yes. Me and Izzy have synced our cycles now. That's why we are so successful.
Yes. I knew you were going to say communication, so I had to come up with
Okay.
a different answer, but I
Okay.
feel like it's still along the lines of communication.
Mhm.
But I think just in life, honesty, I think, is the most important thing to me.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that comes with communication, because if you're communicating but you're not saying what you mean, there's no point in communicating.
Absolutely. And it goes hand in hand, because if you're not communicating, then you're not really being truly honest with the other
Exactly.
person. Yeah.
Because honesty, like, there are ways to, like, just not say the truth, and that's not
Right.
inherently lying, but
It's still not.
it's not
Right.
being authentic or honest.
Yeah.
And plus, like, when you're honest, it's better because you know up front. It's just easier to deal with
There's
the
no
truth.
there's no guessing game. There's no
Exactly.
nothing like that.
Because
You know
then
what's going on.
when there is, like, oh, I don't know, then you don't really know where you stand, and
Mhm.
you can get in your head about it too, and just be like, oh, like, are they actually okay? Are they mad at me? Da, 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 da.
And then I
So,
think that can be kind of a vicious cycle, because if you're in your head, then you're stressed, and then you could lash out, and it could be from nothing, but it's just because
Yeah.
there was no communication.
So, communication and honesty. Okay, so I was actually researching this, and there was a study by a guy named John Gottman, who is a psychologist and researcher, and he spent over 30 years analyzing married couples.
Oh, wow.
And he did this experiment where he locked a couple in a room,
Okay.
and he told them to fight.
Okay.
He didn't tell them to say nice things about each other or what they loved about each other, but his goal of the experiment was to see or predict, are these couples going to stay together?
Wow. Okay.
And he found that the couples that fight, like, not just like
Right.
actually like screaming match, well, not screaming match, but like they
Mhm.
fight furiously, like those are the couples that stay together
Okay.
because they're just getting it all out.
Absolutely. I think that's hand to hand with communication. I don't know what you
Mhm.
think about that, but like,
I think so too.
yeah.
Well, let's see what they said exactly. He found that successful couples, like unsuccessful couples, fight consistently and some fight furiously. Like, there's some couples that fight constantly and then that's what tears them apart.
Okay.
But there's also the couples that last together that do fight consistently and furiously, I guess. They do stay together because they do have the communication.
Right.
And they're able to work through it.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe some fights with the unsuccessful couples could be mean. And
Yeah.
they could be attacking each other and saying, like, you're stupid instead of, like, what you did was stupid.
And I think that it's kind of the type of fighting too. I don't know if
Yeah.
this like really But it's like if you're having fights where it's just like a bunch of petty comments and like nothing's really happening and you're just both feel crappy after,
Yeah.
like that's not a fight. You're not moving towards anything. You're just kind of fighting to fight.
Yeah.
But I think that it can be screaming matches. It can be anything, but as long as you're both really communicating how you're feeling. And I think that can be fine. I don't think that has to be fine necessarily, but I think that obviously humans aren't perfect and it's going to come out like that.
Yeah.
Like it's not, there's no avoiding that. But yeah.
It was a good study. I really like this, actually.
Yeah.
And then he narrowed down a couple of characteristics that the couples that lead to divorce tend to have.
Okay.
So one was criticizing your partner's character, which is like the you're
Mhm.
stupid instead of what you did was stupid. Defensiveness or blame shifting, like I wouldn't have done that if you didn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then contempt, which is just like putting down someone, making them feel less than, because if there's some weird power dynamic, like obviously,
like,
there's
Yeah.
And then stonewalling, so just
Yeah.
not,
Completely shutting off.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that goes with communication. Like if you can't communicate, and that can, again, like you said, like that can look like a lot of different things, but if
Right.
you can't get it out in any sort of way,
Yeah.
you can't do anything.
I think that accountability is really, really important too in relationships. I think the blame shifting is huge because if you're constantly shifting blame off yourself, then there's no room for you to improve
Exactly.
personally. I think that's huge in relationships. Like, I know like some people are like, I think that the best relationships are when you're improving on yourself as well, like from being with the other person. So that's why I think is really important too, is that you're constantly learning and discovering things about yourself with help from your partner.
Yeah. Because when you're in a relationship, the person should help you be better.
Yeah.
Because if someone is just bringing you down or just keeping you consistently the same level and you're not improving or decreasing, it might not be the right relationship.
Yeah.
Or the right person to be with.
Yeah.
Because sometimes what you're comfortable with isn't always going to make you successful.
No.
In life, in a job, in a relationship. Like if you're not having these uncomfortable fights or these uncomfortable moments, you're not going to grow or get stronger, because I feel like fighting does make you grow stronger as a couple or as a pair of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, if you're constantly staying in comfort, and this is really with everything
Yeah.
in life, if you're just always going for comfort, then you're never really going to succeed or really go past that. And my dad always says that I don't know if I completely agree with this, but he says that you are the five people that you hang out most with. And I think especially in relationships, that's really important.
Yeah,
like if your
definitely.
partner is pushing you and making you like, obviously in a, not like crazy, but like, I think that's really
Yeah.
important.
We kind of touched on this already a little bit, but what makes a good partner?
I think someone you can depend on, someone who makes you happy, who you look forward to seeing and spending time with, someone who you admire and they admire you. I think that's a big thing, like judge of character. Like, I think that you both should really be like admiring each other and like really appreciate each other. I think that makes a really healthy relationship. So,
I think, that goes with respect too.
absolutely.
If you don't have respect, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Because even if there's a fight and you might be mad at them, you might be upset, you can still respect them.
Absolutely.
Respect their character, how hard they work, and the good things about them, even if you're upset or anything like that.
Mhm.
But if you don't have respect, you really don't have anything.
Yeah.
Because then what can you hang on to when you are in times of
Right. Because
fighting?
everything's not going to be perfect all the time.
No.
So you need something to,
Yeah.
anchor down. Absolutely.
I also think you said that they make you happy. And there was a quote that I found about that, which was, I thought it was interesting. Hold on, I found it. Okay. Understand that is up to you to make yourself happy. It is not the job of your spouse. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do nice things for each other or that your partner can't make you happy sometimes. I'm just saying don't lay expectations on your partner to make you happy. It is not their responsibility. Figure out as individuals what makes you happy as an individual. Then you each bring that to the relationship. So I think that's like what you were saying.
Yeah, I heavily agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that if you like, wait, I'm gonna figure out how to say this. I think that if you can't rely on anyone in your life
Yeah.
to make you feel a certain way, I think that that's kind of just a recipe for disaster. So you always have to take accountability for how you're feeling and what makes you happy. But I do think at the same time, like you want to be with someone that lifts you up and makes you feel
Oh, yeah,
good
of
about yourself.
course.
Yeah, but I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Because then it's just like when you rely on someone to make you happy, like if they're not feeling happy that day
Yeah.
or something like that, if they're feeling upset, and sometimes that comes out in weird ways, and sometimes they might take that out on you, and then you're sad too.
Right.
And especially if someone gets trapped in a cycle of depression or
Yeah.
anxiety, you might have to be the person who pulls your partner out of that.
Mhm.
And you can't do that if you were relying on them to make you happy. And
Yeah.
maybe something really unexpected or tragic happened in their lives and they can't provide that for you anymore. Then it's just like,
Yeah.
there's no more relationship.
This was something that you said to me, but relationships aren't always 50-50.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 70-30, sometimes it's 90-10. And I think that that's really, really important to know. But I did not say that. That was all Lizzie. I don't want to take credit.
I did find that online somewhere. I did not create that. But
Hi, Max.
hi, Pookie.
How are we doing?
Good. How
Are you currently recording?
Yes, I am. Would you like to say hello?
Hi, guys.
That's Angelina.
What episode is it?
This is I Love You Diving Deeper.
Into what?
It's like
really
just
hot in
going.
here.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
It's actually like it's
no,
insane.
it's like a sauna. Hi. But it's just like going deeper into topics, like researching more stuff like that.
Okay. What are we currently on?
Romantic relationships.
Oh,
If you want to give your 2 cents.
I think this is for you.
I think let me try to be helpful to the podcast. I think that when it comes down to it, research about the other person is important because one of the big things is having commonalities.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Of
I
course.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, guys. I love you.
We'll finish up soon if you guys need to record.
Oh yeah, I just wanted
no.
to show you something. So
Oh. Okay.
find me later.
It's a surprise.
Okay. Thank you guys for stopping by. That was very nice of you. I love you too. Surprise guest. But what were we talking about?
I have no idea. Angelina was
50-50?
looking at me and she was like,
Oh.
through the doorway, yeah.
Yeah, so relationships aren't always 50-50.
Yes.
Because sometimes, like with, like, marriage and stuff like that, like, maybe you split the chores. Maybe someone does cooking and the other person washes the dishes or something like that. And in those cases, it can be 50-50. But also, it can't be all the time. Like, what if someone has a work trip and then someone has to do all the stuff at the house and stuff like that? But even if, like, you had a tough day and you can't be as bubbly or as energetic as you might be, your partner it can't rely on just the way life changes sometimes.
Right.
So one person might have to step up. One person the next day might have to step up again, or the other person can balance it out, but it can't always be 50-50 all the time. And I think with a relationship, so much is give and take, and it's really important that you can communicate and be there for each other when you might only have 10% that day.
I think that that's one of the best parts of relationships too, is when you guys can, both of you can trust each other and you could be vulnerable and you can, I'd be like, just communicate today, be like, I'm really not feeling 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that is very vulnerable to say that, but I think that it's also one of the best parts of being in a relationship because it's someone that you can count on to always support you.
I agree.
And I think I'm going to use, because I've been studying for the SAT, so I'm going to use a very SAT way of saying this, but the mean of the relationship
Mhm.
should always be 50%.
Yeah.
Like in general, like I'm not like exactly, but like
Yeah.
it should always even out.
Exactly.
But obviously those numbers are never going to be, it's never going to just be perfect all
Yeah.
the way 50% across. So
No, definitely. Yeah, because it makes, like, you can't, in a relationship, if you're giving so much and the other person is just taking and not giving back,
Not reciprocating, yeah.
it's not a balanced relationship.
mm-hmm.
And it's not really going to work.
Yep.
Because, again, if someone is always giving and they don't have the 100%
Mhm.
all the time, Like
it's not-
the other person has to step up in order to fill that percentage bar.
And that's not healthy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of, how do you know a relationship is toxic? So we just kind of covered that with giving and taking,
Yeah.
but also what are some of the most toxic things you can really do in a relationship? Because I feel like we've been talking about positive relationships and good
Yeah.
things, but I feel like we do need to touch on the bad things in order not
Yeah.
to do them and to tell our audience
To not do them. Yeah.
not to do them.
I think that obviously there can just be certain toxic people, and I think that when someone who's just inherently toxic is in a relationship and it might not be on purpose. It might be on purpose if they're just kind of, again, taking a lot from the other person, always putting the blame on them, never really taking accountability. I think that it's insanely draining for one person. And I think that in some cases, like, it could be like, not like, it's not just all the blame is on one person. I think that sometimes both people are at fault, but it's just draining for both of them. And I think that when you think about your relationship and there's like a bunch more negatives than there are positives, like there's like a big stretch of like bad and there's like, oh, a little good, but then it's mostly bad again. I think that's really unhealthy. And I think that some people stay together because they are just focusing on the good, which is valid. You should always obviously try and do that. But I think that it's important to identify really how you guys both are feeling together, because
Exactly.
sometimes,
Just weigh the bad times and the good times. Like, which one has more? And then I feel like that will give you an answer.
Yeah.
Like, do the good times, are there more of them? And are they more meaningful than all of the times of trouble?
And I think that if you're not intentional in doing that, sometimes it can be hard to be honest with yourself with that kind of stuff, especially if you're in a toxic relationship. It can be hard to kind of break out of that. So I think that having self-confidence and having self-trust is really, really important in those aspects.
Because I think we were even saying this last night. I think confidence is really just bravery. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, okay, is this worth solving? And if it is, are we brave enough to do it, even though it'll be uncomfortable? Are we confident in ourselves and our relationship to keep going and keep pushing through times that might not be the best?
We accept the love we think we deserve. That's like my favorite quote of all time. I didn't say that. It's from Perks of Being a Wallflower. But I really like that quote. It's awesome. I love that book.
I think it's true.
Absolutely.
With toxic relationships is the control aspect, because I feel like that's, I don't know if, like, I don't want to say like the most popular toxic trait, but it's like the most known, I think, the most notorious. Like, people start to be like, oh, maybe I'm in a toxic relationship when they constantly want your address or not your address, your location.
Yeah.
They just keep moving from place to place.
Yeah.
What's your address? What's your address? What's your address? No, they constantly like want your location, want to know where you are, what you're doing at like every second of the day, like spam calls. I don't know. That's just what I read online. I don't have any experience with that. But even sometimes with friendships too, like they'll be like, you can't be friends with this person or something like that, or like, I don't want you to have other friends or hang out with this person or that person. And when you're in a relationship, you really can't do that. Like, you can't tell the other person what they're allowed to do, because at the end of the day, that's not your responsibility or your right to tell anyone what they can do.
Cannot do. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But
You can share how you're feeling on certain topics, but going out and strictly saying like you're not allowed to do that is really not cool. And that's especially like because I think that goes hand in hand with what's it called, like self-assuredness and just that kind of stuff. Because if someone's scared, like, oh, they're gonna leave me, that can be a thing that people gravitate towards. Like, oh, where are you? And that can be extremely draining. So
I think what also plays into a big part of controlling is jealousy, which is a hard emotion to manage. We were just talking in health about it. Miss B was talking about it. She was like saying that as teenagers, jealousy is probably the most hard emotion to manage, and that could come out in the form of you can't hang out with them or
Right.
you can't go there, and that's not something that you want to do.
Yeah.
Because then the person will just want to do it more. I feel like when you're not allowed to do something, it almost becomes like,
Yeah, and it's there. I think there's a disconnect then, because I think
Yeah.
in a relationship you're a team, but then if you're saying like, oh no, you just can't do that, like it's almost like you're two different.
yeah.
You're two different teams against each other, and that never works too. That's also
No.
toxic. So yeah.
Like I was just, well, this doesn't, I don't know if it applies to necessarily like romantic relationships, but like we see it a lot of the case with like rebellious teenagers. Like if their parent tells them not to do something,
Right.
they want to do it more.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. It depends on also the personalities of the people too. Like if someone's more passive and someone's more aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
like the passive person just might be like, okay, and then what can they do?
Right. Exactly.
Because then you become dependent on that person too. And if one day they up and decide, oh, I'm out of here, then it's like,
Right. Then you're crushed,
yeah,
because you were just so much of your time was just
Yeah.
spent making that person happy.
and then you become almost a shell of yourself. Because
Right.
what if that person like isolated you from your family, your friends,
Right. Exactly.
and you could only hang out with that person?
It was just all about them,
Exactly, and then,
And then
they
they-
leave.
and then
What is your life now?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely important to notice these toxic traits before it gets
mm-hmm.
super duper bad.
Right.
Because it's just not going to end well.
not to dwell on them, but just to be kind of always consciously aware. Like don't like
Exactly.
obsess over them, because then
Well, yeah.
you're gonna manifest them. But just to always kind of just keep it in the back of your mind, like that can happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
And even like communicating with that, like even if it's something like little, like, oh, like just like saying
Right.
like, I didn't like that you said that or something like that, just
Mhm.
to make sure that you are on the same wavelength
Mm-hmm.
and your cycles are synced up.
Yes, exactly. Again, it all comes back to syncing cycles.
Yes, it does. To end off, what is the key to a long lasting relationship?
Yeah, I think long lasting is just like, I think that you can obviously all these things like communication, honesty, like is all really important, and those are the things you should really be focusing on. But I also think just paying attention to like if especially long lasting relationship, like it's like I love you, and like it's like
Yeah.
that's the most important thing, to always know that and to always be able to come back to that. And when things do get messy, if you're locked in, like you're really locked in.
Yeah.
And I think that just having that assuredness and having that like sense of control, and just not sense of control, that was the wrong word, kind of just place to always come back to, and that security was what I was looking for. Is really important. I think that's what makes relationships so beautiful.
I think so too. I think a lot of it also has to do with, like you said, like if you're locked in, you're locked in. It's waking up and choosing that person every single day.
Yep.
And it's making an effort to be patient and kind and pay attention to the little things. And I think it's incorporating, like you said, communication, honesty, and maybe most importantly, having those fights.
Yep.
Because if you can't fight, the relationship's not going to last.
Yep.
Because you have one fight, then it's over.
And that's
But,
not
Yeah.
realistic.
I think there was like, it said like, there was like just the headings and on the article that I read, and one of them was get good at fighting.
Yep.
And then the other one was get good at forgiveness,
Mhm.
because they go hand in hand, and there's a lot of that in relationships.
You can't put a bunch of pressure on it being perfect.
Mhm.
It just has to be, because nothing in human nature is necessarily perfect. But I think
Yeah.
that's what makes it so cool and so nice to be in a relationship, is that it's not perfect, so there's highs and lows. And I think that's the best part of being alive.
And relationships also change a lot too. So
Mhm.
it's just being in tune with how the other person is feeling, and being there for them if there is a big change or something does happen, and just being dependable.
Yep.
Like you said.
Your team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a pretty good place to wrap up.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming on.
Of course.
I'm your host, Isabella Sanfilippo.
And I am Max O'Reilly.
And remember,
We
We love you.